Hi, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar in your busy schedule. So today, we're going to see more information on what is endpoint management and security. I would like to give a brief note about the product which are present under endpoint management and security. As you can see, Desktop Central is a complete unified endpoint management tool. I would say rather it's a suite which has all these features integrated in it. In simple term, if you go for unified endpoint management tool, Desktop Central, you'll find all these features integrated in it, like OS deployment, mobile device management, patch management, browser security plus, device control, and vulnerability manager. So we are working on bringing up all these components under a single console, whereas we do have like patch management, OS deployment, remote access, all these features have been integrated in it. And I would also like to let you know that if you have a major requirement of managing only third-party patches because you're using SCCM already, and you just need a tool which can sit on top of SCCM and take care of third-party patches, I would recommend Patch Connect Plus for you. So it's a simple component which can be installed in SCCM, and you'll be able to deploy third-party patches just through SCCM. And here I would like to welcome everyone for the Desktop Central training program. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sriram, and I'm associated with Desktop Central for past 10 years. Let's have a look at the overview of our training schedule. It's a 7-week series, and we are in week 1. All the sessions will be recorded, and it will be available in the below mentioned website, which is www.desktopcentral.com/training.html. All registered participants will receive the recorded training video via an email as well. Before we start the training, I want to share with you the agenda for the day. So here comes the agenda. So first, we're going to see what is patch management and how it works, followed by the architecture. From my support experience, I will be sharing 4 scenarios which would comprehensively cover the entire patch automation process and its components. And we'll also see how to test and deploy the patches to the test and production environment. Deploying patches manually to multiple sites every month will be a tedious job for an administrator. Let's see how to overcome the situation using automated patch deployment. Deploying 0-day critical patch. There might be some difficult situation where you need to install the critical patches immediately to the production environment. For an example, 0-day critical patches. We will see how to achieve this using the patch deployment technique. And for better understanding, let me share with you some of the interesting scenarios which I came across while interacting with customers. Conclusion of the session with most frequently asked questions with answers. This time, what we have done here is, during the last webinar, most of the customers have raised valuable questions. So we have collated those information and we have got that as a separate question tab here, and we'll be explaining more about those questions. During the training session, if you come across any questions, feel free to use the chat option to chat with our expert team. We will collect all the questions raised during the session, and they'll also be published for the larger audience view. And I would like to let you know that we'll be using Desktop Central server build version, which is 10.0.420 for this presentation. And this application supports on all the browsers. So here is an important question, I would say. What is Desktop Central? I would say Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that helps in managing servers, laptops, desktops, smartphone, tablets, and browsers from a central location. Also, we'll be able to automate the regular desktop management routines from a single console. So based on Forrester, so based on their review, how a UEM product should be. Product that provides a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. So this is how a unified endpoint management should be. So as I've told you earlier, using Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management, you'll be able to manage all these flavors like desktops, laptops, browsers, point of sale devices, servers, mobile, and tablets can be utilized in a more easier way under a single console. And now we're going to see what does Desktop Central UEM Edition offers. So we offer client management plus mobile device management plus modern management for Windows 10 and Mac OS plus OS deployment. To make it much more easier, we support patching, software deployment, inventory, configuration for your client and server devices, as well as you'll be able to manage your iOS, Android, Windows, Chromebooks. Plus, you'll be able to take care of your Windows 10 laptops and desktops or even Mac OS with the modern management. So what is modern management? I would say the best part here is geo-tracking, geo-fencing for your laptops and putting up in a kiosk mode. Restriction mode can be enabled with the modern management feature. And the major part here is imaging your fresh machines. And a simple concept, right from building up a machine, installing an image, pushing up required application to it, deploying patches. Post deploying patches, you would like to get a report, inventory, remote control, configuration. Everything can be done under a single unified endpoint console. And I'm glad to announce that we have been recognized by Gartner as ManageEngine in its 2018 Magic Quadrant for Unified Endpoint Management Tool. And we have also won, we are the customer choice solution for UM Edition for 2018 and 2019. So once you go to the Gartner website, you'll be able to find the details about Unified Endpoint Management, Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management. And it can, if you're a customer, you can very well share your feedback there too. So here is the overview of Unified Endpoint Management. So what are all the features integrated under Unified Endpoint Management? So you have Desktop Central, Mobile Device Management, Modern Management, and OS Deployment. So all these features are integrated under a single roof, which is DCUEM. Desktop Central Architecture. As you all know, Desktop Central is an on-premises solution. Desktop Central Server can be installed in your local network or DMZ. I presume everybody knows about DMZ. It is where you can place your server in secured hosting so that the client machine can reach the server in a secure way. Post-server installation, we can easily push the agents to the client machine, and we'll see more information about the agent installation in upcoming slides. Here comes the important part, managing machines in wide area network. As you all know, as I've told you earlier, you'll be able to manage machines in LAN as well as in WAN. When you push a patch to the machines in local area network, those machines will download the patches from the Desktop Central server, which is present in that location. How are we going to manage the machines which are outside LAN? In this case, you can very well utilize the distribution server feature to deploy the patches to the machines available in WAN. And the important part here I would like to explain is how a distribution server works. For an example, if you have concerns with bandwidth and if you manage more than 20 machines in a remote site, here is where the distribution server comes into picture. So when a patch task is created, the machines which are located in the remote office will not reach the server to download the patches. only the distribution server will reach the desktop central server, and it downloads the patches and distributes to the machine which are available in the remote office. So this feature will help you to manage the bandwidth efficiently. Users on the go, like roaming users who move from one location to another, can be easily managed with Desktop Central. So to achieve this, if you're managing Desktop Central server in LAN or in DMZ, you can enable a NATing in your firewall, or you can utilize the forwarding server feature, which will help to communicate the agent securely. You might wonder what is a forwarding server. It's nothing but the secured gateway, as you can see here. If you wish to manage the roaming users securely, then you can utilize the forwarding server feature. So this acts as a secured gateway server between the roaming agents and the Desktop Central server. Any communication from the roaming agents to the Desktop Central server will be routed through the forwarding server. I would also like to let you know that we're going to talk more information about the patch process, from where we are actually downloading the patches. Does the client machine download the patches from their side directly, or only the server does it? We're going to talk more about this when it comes to patch management architecture. So here comes the next important part, which is managing machines under a closed network. If Desktop Central Server is installed in a closed network like demilitarized zone, where the server has no internet connection, the patch synchronization as well as the automated update software deployment is not possible because the server does not have internet access. In this case, we need to nominate a machine which has internet connection. So through that machine, we'll be able to download the patches from the vendor site, and we'll be able to copy and share those files to the server machine. So in this way, you'll still be able to manage the machines which are part of a closed network. As you're an AWS marketplace, there might be multiple scenarios why you wish to install the server in cloud. Example, if you manage more roaming users, having the server in cloud will be an advantage. So in this scenario, you can place the Desktop Central server in AWS or Azure. I would say it's a cost-effective solution. So if you're placing the device in cloud, you can avoid the hardware infrastructure and maintenance cost for infrastructure. If you have a distribution server for cloud in your network, which will contact the AWS or Azure instance, and your clients can be managed easily. You can also manage roaming users via your distribution server. If you host your application servers in cloud, they can be managed directly from Azure or AWS. And I would like to let you know that Desktop Central will be on cloud very soon, so where it can comprehensively manage all of these above mentioned features effectively. By now, we have released cloud for other ManageEngine products, which is like Patch Manager Plus, Mobile Device Manager. So you can very well make use of those products too. Components. So these are the 7 components which are involved when it comes to Desktop Central. Out of 7, 3 are essential components, and you find the remaining 4 as optional components. By now, you should be aware of what is distribution server, secure gateway server, and you might wonder what is this failover server. So let me concise about failover server here. Failover server brings in an additional server which actively monitors the primary server and takes over the operation when the primary server fails. This feature helps you in eliminating the downtime in your business. So here comes the next important topic, which is supported operating system. In Desktop Central, we support all major flavors right from Windows, Windows Server, Mac, and Linux. So these are the supported operating system list. As you can see, We support right from Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows Vista 7, and all major versions. And even when it comes to Mac, we support all the major versions here. And Linux, we have also got CentOS, Linux, Mint, and SUSE, as well as Ubuntu, Debian, and all the latest versions are available. And the best part here is all these management operating systems are variable, can be easily accessed through a single console. And I'm also glad to announce that from Windows 7 to Windows 10 migration can be easily done using Desktop Central OS deployment. So if you need more information about it, you can very well reach our chat expert team, so where they can very well help you accordingly. Agent installation method. As you all know, Desktop Central is an on-premises solution, and the server application should be installed first, and you need to push agents to the client machine in order to manage those machines with Desktop Central. Let's see how to install those agents on the client machine. Agent installation can be done through multiple ways. So the first one will be Windows GPO or a startup script. If you're using Active Directory in Windows Network, you should be able to leverage that by deploying agents using group policy. From the console, you can easily push the agent to the client machine. By just adding up the domain credentials, you'll be able to identify the machines which are part of your domain, and you can simply choose those machines and you'll be able to push agents to those machines. While pushing the agent from the console, I would recommend you to kindly check the Desktop Central server has access to the admin dollar of the client computer. We're going to see more information about agent installation failures and what error message you'll be getting and what's a common error message you'll be getting. The third part will be you can download and install the agent manually on all machines. So here comes the 90 minutes refresh policy. Desktop Central architecture is scalable to manage different network and even larger network up to 30,000 machines. This is possible because of the refresh policy we use. Let me explicit this in simple terms. Desktop Central agent would be contacting the server at every 90 minutes. This is called as agent refresh cycle. This feature ensures that all computers in the network contact the server periodically. Two important factors are ensured here. Network is not choked by the agent communication, meaning bandwidth is not disturbed due to the agent-server communication. The performance of the server is not affected at any time. Also, Desktop Central Server has an intelligence to endure systematic, streamlined communication from all agents at regular intervals. For an example, in a network of 90 computers, for each minute, one computer will reach out the Desktop Central Server. And for 900 computers, for a minute, 10 computers will reach the server. For a larger network, like 9,000 machines, 100 machines will reach the Desktop Central Server. Using this feature, we ensure a hassle-free communication from agent to server. If you guys have any questions by now, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. Port used by Desktop Central. We would recommend you to open the ports shown here to manage specific features with Desktop Central. Agent server communication happens in port 8020, and server to agent notification happens in port 8027 TCP. For an example, voice and video chat. One of the features associated with the product works in UDP 8443. If it is a Windows firewall blocks the port, we will notify you in the home screen, and that can be added as an exception. Agent server communication happens securely on port 8383. What happens if this port is blocked on the server machine? Any patch or software deployment task you push from the server will not get completed. So here is the important part. So we are stepping into the actual core of this webinar, which is patch management. We offer support for 1,000 plus applications in Desktop Central, and we support 250 plus third-party applications. Based on the use cases, a lot of customers had questions on which updates are required for the client machines. Based on the operating system, I'm going to give a brief note on which updates are mostly required for Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. When it comes to Windows 7 and 8, these are the major updates which are required. Security only update. An update that has all the new security updates for a given month, and security monthly quality rollup. These updates include both security and reliability updates that are packaged together. The monthly rollup addresses new security issues and will proactively include updates that were released in past. And I would also like to let you know that Microsoft extended support of security updates for EOL operating system. And we also service stack updates which are fixed to the components that have been installed. And we also provide support for servers. And the major part over here is Delta, Cumulative, and Feature Pack, which are the major updates for Windows 10. What is a Delta update? An update that has all the new security updates for a given month. And you should be definitely aware of the cumulative update, whereas this update includes both security and reliability updates that are packaged together. The cumulative update addresses new security issues and will proactively include updates that were released in past. Feature pack management. As you all know, the latest feature pack, which is currently on most of the machines, is Windows 10 1903. So once a feature pack is released, service or support for the feature pack will be available for 18 months. So using Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management, you'll be able to automate the feature pack deployment. We're going to see more information about the feature pack deployment as well as how to automate the process under the question module. I'm going to provide more information on how Microsoft suggests their customers to deploy the patches. As you can see, every month, second Tuesday will be considered as Patch Tuesday by Microsoft. During this time, a lot of security patches as well as non-security patches will be released. Most of the customers, what they do is they won't deploy a non-security updates. They only deploy the security updates during Patch Tuesday, and they don't care about the non-security updates. As you can see in this image, this is how Microsoft deploy or test patches in their environment, whereas this is how it's been actually deployed in customers' environment. We would always recommend you to give high priority for critical updates, but post that, at least on the third week or the fourth week, we would always recommend you to deploy all the required patches for that environment. This will help us to achieve a proper resolution as well as we'll be able to make our environment healthy. We're going to talk more about the system health policy in the coming slides. Patch management architecture. So here, we're going to share more information on how the patches are getting downloaded and how it's being pushed to the client environment. As you can see, whenever a patch is released, it will be available in the vendor side. Our crawler team repeatedly probes the internet to draw the vulnerability patch information from the vendor side. Once the download is completed, the patches will be tested in our environment. So this testing involves whether the patches have been successfully installed, the compatibility check, and the applicability of the patches will be tested during this process. Then it will be published to the central patch repository. That's the important part here. The Desktop Central server subscribes to the central patch repository to download the vulnerability database periodically. Once this process is done, the client machines will be scanned in order to identify the missing patches. After identifying the missing patches, Desktop Central server directly downloads the required patches from the vendor side. So the client machines will not have access to reach the vendor side to download the patches, and the distribution server will not have access to reach the vendor side to download the patches. Only the Desktop Central server will reach the vendor side. It will download the patches, and it will be shared to the distribution server as well as to the client machine. Based on Microsoft's suggestion, I've taken a live example here. John, one of our loyal customers who is managing hotels in multiple locations and managing over 15,000 computers in his network, which is spread across the globe. Whereas he managed multiple remote offices in different locations. He also managed machines in the environment which has lesser bandwidth. As you can see, this is connected to the head office via VPN, and it has only 512 kbps as a bandwidth. So we're going to see how to manage this entire environment using Desktop Central Patch Management. So here, John has few objectives which need to be completed. So the first objective here is scan and test the patches in the pilot environment. Once the testing is done, he needs to approve the tested patches. After the approval, he should deploy the patches to the production environment. To make the deployment much easier, let's have a look on how to create automate patch deployment task, and we will see how to deploy the patches on a periodic basis. At last, he needs to share the deployment report to his IT manager. So let's see how John and team achieve this objective using Desktop Central. For that, I'm going to log in to the Desktop Central console as John. So here I've logged in as Jonathan, as you can see here, who is the administrator for this account. And the first step I would like to tell you is checking up the build version. As you can see, I'm in 10.0.420. If you'd like to update or upgrade to this build, you can very well reach our website. So we'll have upgrade link where you'll be able to upgrade to the latest version. So this is the actual UEM edition of Desktop Central. So the first step we're going to proceed here is configuring the proxy. So here under admin, proxy settings, you'll find an option to configure the proxy. You might wonder why I should configure a proxy. The main reason for configuring the proxy server is the Desktop Central server should contact the central patch repository to update the vulnerability database, as well as to download the patches from the vendor site. Proxy should be enabled. I would also recommend to check whether patchdb.manageengine.com is open to download the vulnerability database. So you have like 4 options available here. So you can either go with direct connection, or if you would like to put up a username or password, or if you're planning to manage the entire environment in a closed network, you can even choose these information. Based on this, proxy will be configured. So the next important step is configuring the patch database setting. You can choose a specific type of patch which you wish to manage, like operating system related patches or third-party patches. All the computers will be scanned to identify the missing patches based on the selection you do here. If you choose only security updates will be shown as missing in your environment. So this will be really useful if you're managing WSUS and you wish to only install the third-party patches through Desktop Central. In this case, you can only choose to install patches related to third-party updates. However, based on my support experience, most of the customers are using all the options that entire network is patched through Desktop Central and gain a single point of management. And the next important thing here is creating a schedule by what time my server should reach the central patch repository in order to sync the metadata. So I can very well put up the time. Based on that, my server will collect the information. So how this process exactly works on the background? For that, I'm going to take you back to the presentation. So till now, we have seen how to configure the proxy and how to automate the patch DB sync. What exactly happens here is, so this is your server, and based on the schedule, your server will reach the database and it collects the information. Once the sync process is done, by the next 90 minutes, any machine which is reaching the server will be scanned automatically. As you can see in Desktop Central, right from sync and scan, both of these tasks have been automated. So the only thing you need to do is just configure this once, and post that, everything will be taken care automatically. Moving back to the console, the next important part here, you might question is why I should scan a machine. What's the need of scanning a machine? And what is a major advantage? So only when you scan a machine, you'll be able to identify the missing patches. So before performing all these actions, one important thing we need to do is we need to install an agent to that machine. So installing agent is a major part. So there are like multiple ways, as we've seen earlier. You can simply install the agent. So under admin, you can go to scope of management, or you do have a quick launch option over here. So you can just come up over here and you can click on computers. So through this, it will be redirected to the agent installation page. So here simply you can just click on add computers and you can add the domain credentials. We support both Active Directory as well as workgroup. You can add any number of domain as well as workgroup, and we'll be able to discover the domain and we can install the agent simply to those machines. So what exactly happens when I push an agent to the client machine? We remotely connect to that machine in the backend and we copy the installable files. Once it is done, it will automatically or it will remotely invoke the installation. So in this way, we'll be able to silently push the agents to the client machine. And this agent installation does not require a reboot. If you'd like to download and install the agent manually, you can very well click here and you can download it and it can be installed. If you want to know the status of the agent deployment, you can very well come up over here. It gives you a clear information and error message what exactly happened. You might see like why there are so many errors over here, because all these machines are not being used. Just for testing purpose, we have added those information over here. And we really work on a daily basis when it comes to error messages as well as remarks. So we update our knowledge base on a daily basis. So you can find all the updated information under our read KB. So the next important part here, so based on the objective, I've created proxy configuration, I've initiated the patch DB setting, as well as I've installed the agent. So my first objective here, the major objective is I should scan all the machine to identify the missing patches, and then I should deploy those patches to my environment. So scanning process happens automatically, so I don't need to do any manual scanning over here. So the best part I would say is what exactly happens during the scanning is the client machine will be notified to reach the server. If I initiate a manual scanning process, client machine will be notified to reach the server to pick up the task and then client machine will scan and post the data back to the server. So this is the actual notification port work which will be done here. So here I've already scanned the machine. The automated scanning process is done. My objective is just to deploy these patches to the environment. Personally, I will never recommend anybody to just deploy the patches directly to your production environment, because as you guys remember, my objective here is to deploy the latest patches in my test environment, in my pilot environment, and then only I should be able to deploy the patches to the production environment. So to test the patches, I'm going to go to the deployment tab. Here under test and approve, I can create n number of test groups based on my requirement. So here I've chosen an option, test and approve the patches. So any patch which comes into my environment will be tested in my pilot group, and then it will be approved to the production environment. You might question me why I should test the patches. Imagine if you have a banking application installed in your production environment. Installing the patches to the production environment without testing might create issues like BSOD, or it can even corrupt the banking application, or it can reboot the machine. So this will be a downtime for your business. To overcome this and to secure the network, you can utilize the test and approve feature. So here, we're going to edit the group which you've already created. So as we have a non-production environment, I can just very simply click on modify. And here I can choose the custom group. What is a custom group? Custom group is a unique feature in Desktop Central, which helps you to create a group for specific users and computers. This group will help you to define the specific group of machines or users at the time of any frequent patch deployment or other requirements in Desktop Central. As you can find, you find different categories over here: static, unique, and dynamic. If you'd like to group machines based on the operating system, you can very well come up over here. You can choose the operating system and you can group the machines. So here I've created a custom group already, which is patch test. So I can choose the type of updates I would like to deploy in my environment. So we support all three platforms like Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I can very well go ahead and choose what type of updates I need, like security, critical, or I would like to deploy patches only to a specific application. I can also choose that. And I can even choose the third-party updates. And I can choose the deployment policy. We're going to talk more information about the deployment policy in the coming session. So here in the deployment policy, we can just choose the one which is actually required. So based on this policy, the patches will be pushed to the test environment. And I can even create a notification option. So during the deployment process, I'll be getting a notification about the patches which are successfully approved, which are successfully deployed. All those information I can get as a proper report. And the major part over here is we have also automated the test and approve feature. Not only just synchronization and scanning is automated, even test and approve is automated when it comes to Desktop Central. So I can very well approve the patches after certain days. So for 5 days, the patches will be tested in my test environment. Post that, the patches will be automatically approved to the production environment. So only once a patch has been approved, you'll be able to deploy that patch using automate patch deployment task. Or if you don't need automated approval, you can simply uncheck this option and you can create this task. Post this, I can simply go to that group which I've created and I can manually approve these patches too. So as you can see, it gives you a clear information about that patch. What patch is that? How many machines requires those patches? What's the release date? I can even add like more columns to it. And if I would like to approve these patches manually, I can very simply come here and I can either decline it if there's going to be a problem with that patch, or I can even approve those patches over here. and I can find like system view, how many machines are involved when it comes to the specific task. I can find those information over here. And the summary tab gives you a clear information on what is the criteria which have been chosen here, what's the deployment policy, when the task have been created, who created it. All these information will be very well available over here. So with this, you'll get a clear picture of what can be done. Also, you'll be able to get this as a detailed report and it can be shared with the subordinates. So based on my objective, I've configured the proxy, created the patch database sync, and I've shown you how to scan the machines and identify the missing patches. So based on that, we have also created test and approve. So the next major objective here is to deploy patches using automate patch deployment. Because as of now, the patches are being tested in test environment, in the pilot environment. So the next process is to automate this entire deployment. So here I can come to automate patch deployment task. I can click on Windows, Mac, or Linux based on my requirement. And here I can choose the update. The same way what you've done in test and approve, you'll find the severity as well as updates which you'd like to manage. So you can choose those information like feature pack. So we're talking about the feature pack automation. So I can simply choose the feature pack over here. Based on this, automatically the update will be installed. I don't need to download an ISO manually here in this situation. It'll automatically take care of the dependency patches as well as the ISO with this part. And we do even support roll-up updates, critical, non-critical updates. So you can choose one based on your requirement. You can even choose the third-party updates as well as the antivirus definition updates like Windows Defender, Microsoft Fortran. So these updates can be very well chosen over here. And here is where you choose the deployment policy. So based on this deployment policy, the patches will be pushed to the production environment. And here is the most important part where I should choose the target machines. So to which specific remote office I would like to deploy. If I would like to deploy patches to New York, San Francisco, and I have like offices in London, so based on John's objective, I can choose all these 3 remote offices. And I would like to make sure that only a specific site or OU in this remote office being patched, because I don't want all these 3 offices to be patched at the same time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to choose a specific OU. Only for this specific OU, the patches will be pushed. So during the deployment, what is the major part here? Getting up reports. So right from sync, scan, downloading the patches, deploying the patches, and getting up a detailed report. So all these 5 tasks can be easily automated using Desktop Central. As you can see, all these 5 tasks definitely doesn't require a human intervention. So the only thing you need to do is just create it once, and post that, everything will be taken care automatically. So I can get a detailed report about the download and the deployment failure, how many patches have been like successfully deployed, how many failures. All these information can be sent as a detailed report to the email addresses which have been updated over here. As you guys can see, it's a very simple process on creating the automate patch deployment. So based on John's objective, we have created the automate patch deployment, and we'll see what exactly happened in that specific task. So here I'm bringing up the automate patch deployment task, which is for the New York site. As you can see, this summary screen gives you a clear, valid information about the task details, when was the task modified, who created this task, and what type of updates he has chosen, and what is the criteria, the deployment criteria, which machines have been chosen over here, the policy. All these information will be available. As you can see, it even gives you a deployment summary, a pie chart. So it tells you how many patches have been successfully deployed. As you can click on the system view, it gives you an information that 5 patches have been successfully installed to the specific machine. The reason for successful deployment is this machine is reachable to the desktop central server, and it was in a situation to pick up the task and it can execute it very wisely without any problem. And here in the system, you will be able to find the number of machines which have been like a part of that specific task. If you would like to see how many patches have been successfully deployed, you can also find those information over here. I can also get this as a report just from here. Or if I need a detailed view of what patches have been deployed, what's the current status of it. And here comes the part, DC Webinar Lab reboot pending. The reason why it shows the reboot pending is in the deployment policy, I've not chosen an option to do a reboot. As you can see here, reboot policy, do not shut down or reboot. If I've chosen the reboot part over here, it would have been automatically restarted and those patches would have been shown successful over here. You'll also find a detailed remarks which gives you an exact information of what have been done during that task. And if there's going to be any failures while downloading the patches, we also show those information over here. And if you'd like to modify the same task, or if you'd like to use the same configuration, you can very well come up over here and you can edit the task. Or if you'd like to use the same configuration, the policy, everything, but I just need to change the targets, I can also do those options over here, or you can even suspend the task. So if you have any questions till now, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. So I've completed my important objective here, which is automating the entire patch deployment process. So I've scanned, identified the missing patches, deployed to the pilot environment, and now I've pushed those patches to the production environment using automate patch deployment, and it's successful too. So my next important part here is I would like to give you an overview of how this automate patch deployment exactly works, just a background information. As you can see here, this is the automate patch deployment inside. So I've created an automate patch deployment task based on the deployment window. The server will download the patches and then it will be deployed. And then post that, I can get a detailed report about what have been exactly done on that specific task. And I can also get to know about the information, what patches have been deployed by last month or 3 months back. All those information will be available in the task. So these are the additional benefits which have been added to that automate patch deployment. Moving back to the console here. So now we have seen how to automatically deploy the patches. Let's see how to deploy zero-day critical patches to my environment. So whenever it comes to zero-day critical patches, you might wonder what is a zero-day critical patches. Any critical vulnerability like Meltdown, WannaCry patches, or Spectre, these type of patches are really capable of exposing any sensitive data like passwords, photos, emails, and even like critical documents which can be accessed and stolen. So before these machines are getting affected, so once the patch is released, we should be able to deploy those patches immediately. So is that a real easy job for an administrator to go search for any critical vulnerability or zero-day critical patches and deploy? I would definitely say no. Because here with Desktop Central, you can make this process much more easier. Just come up over here to critical vulnerability. You'll find all the important zero-day patches. Just choose those patches here, click on install patch, which will automatically choose the required target machine. So this patch is missing for a single machine where that machine has been already chosen. You can just go ahead and just click on deploy immediately. So once you click on deploy immediately, the patches will be pushed immediately to the client machine. There's a difference between deploy and deploy immediately. If you are planning to deploy patches for more than 50 machines and you don't need an immediate deployment, let it happen on the refresh cycle. it can very well go with deploy part. If you need an on-demand task to be executed on your client machine, you can very well use the deploy immediately option. So where the client machine will be notified to reach the server, and immediately the client machine will pick up the task and it will be executed on the client machine end. And the status will be posted post that part. So here is the important part where you can very well find the details of the task you have created. So here is the manual configuration I've created. Once I go in this manual configuration, I'll be able to find what are all the patches have been executed, which one have got failed. All those information will be available under the manual deployment. So this is the overview of Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management and a patch management module, which is under that. And these are the other modules which are available, which is software deployment. We have webinar for software deployment, which is going to happen by next week. And we do have inventory, OS deployment, mobile device management, tools, and reports. So all these modules will be considered. And we also have webinars, which is going to happen for all these modules in the upcoming weeks. So moving up to the dashboard part here. As you can find, using up this part, you'll be able to get a detailed information about how many patches have been deployed successfully, what patches have been failed, how many unapproved patches, any latest security news. All those information will be available. We're also working on customizing the entire dashboard, and it should be available very soon. Moving back to the presentation. And this is my final objective. Deployment during non-office hours. I need the deployment to happen between 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And during the deployment, most of the machines will be turned off. I need to turn on those machines. And post the deployment, I should make sure that those machines are rebooted. And I should also make sure that the servers are not rebooted. We are not disturbing the servers. So that can be easily done with the deployment policy, which we were talking earlier. So here under deployment policy, we have an easy option to execute. So here, I can simply come up to the patch management, and I'll find an option called deployment. And here comes the deployment policy. So here you'll find the deployment schedule, preferred week split. Most of the customers have requested that they were not able to deploy patches based on Patch Tuesday. As you all aware that not every month, second Tuesday will fall on the actual week of Patch Tuesday. Not every Patch Tuesday comes on second Tuesday of every month. So to make it much simpler, we have got a deployment window based on Patch Tuesday. So here you can go for this option. The patch released week will be considered as a Patch Tuesday week. As you can see here, so this is the second Patch Tuesday, whereas it falls under third week. So to avoid this type of confusion, we've got a deployment window based on Patch Tuesday. If you'd like to deploy patches post Patch Tuesday, you can very well choose these options over here, like first week after Patch Tuesday, second week after Patch Tuesday, or last week before Patch Tuesday. I can choose these options, which will be available. And you can even choose days by which day you need the deployment to happen. And you can also put up different deployment window. So I want the deployment to happen at non-office hours, which is like 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock. So I'm going to just configure this information. And if I need the same configuration to run on a different time, I can also add multiple deployment window to it. So I can create multiple schedules under a same task. So I don't need to have multiple tasks for it. I can just create different schedules under a same task. And based on the objective, I'm going to choose this option to turn on the Wake on LAN feature on client machine. And here comes the important part, the user notification. So using this process, you'll be able to notify the users during the deployment process. So if you want the users to get notified or if you would like to provide an option to user to skip the deployment and do a forced deployment after 3 days or 4 days, even that option is possible over here. You can even customize your own message. Here is the most important part. So we have revamped our reboot window. So here you find an option called force reboot. So post the deployment, immediately after the deployment, within the deployment window, if you'd like to do a reboot, you can very well choose this option. Or if you want to mention a specified time, like if you want to put up a specific time that the reboot should happen only on weekends, because most of the customers, they felt that the reboot is happening immediately after the deployment. I don't want this to happen. I want to make sure that the reboot happens only on weekends or during non-office hours. So in that case, I can very well schedule a window and add multiple reboot window based on my requirement. If a desktop actually missed a reboot, you'll also be able to reboot when it is active by next time. You can even create your own message and it can be displayed to the user. So this is one way of doing a force reboot. Another way is providing an access to user to do a postpone reboot. So a show reboot prompt after certain days. Like I want to make sure that this reboot window prompts only on Sunday. I want to make sure I've just put up a time. Only by that time when the user is active, those information will get popped up. Auto reboot if the above window times out within 5 minutes. If there is no postpone option have been done by the user, he didn't postpone the schedule, automatically the reboot will happen on those machines. And how many intervals I should give to a user, I can even choose those information over here. Or if you'd like to give a user defined time, so the user can just choose a time. By this time, I just need a notification. Before that, I don't want to get disturbed. I can very well choose those options too over here under the deployment policy. So here, this is how the exact reboot window looks like. So I have an option called restart now, postpone reboot, and select a time, the desired time. So I can just choose postpone, either postpone the reboot or I can even choose a time. So if I choose desired time, I can choose the time, I can choose the date, and I can even put up a time frame window, which is also possible. So these are the new features which are available in the latest build. So this is how the force reboot window looks like. So I can very simply go ahead and click on restart now, or I can even wait for 5 minutes and automatically the reboot will happen on the client environment. So here is a glance of the entire patch management, what we've done today. So I would say it's an out-of-box feature where you don't need WSUS for Desktop Central Patch Management. Desktop Central is a standalone product and it does not require any other solution to work. And it helps supporting, or it helps patching both server as well as workstation. And it also helps you with cross-platform like Windows, Mac, and Linux. It supports both Microsoft as well as third-party patches. And we have an automated test and approve process, automated patch deployment, flexible deployment policies, which you have seen now. And we also help you in declining patches, as well as we have much more filters and reports, which are available inside the product. Scenarios and solution. So here comes the first scenario. I experienced serious difficulties deploying Java 6, 7, as well as Java 8, as well as Java 11 patches. As you all know, Java stopped the actual download for Java 6, 7, and 8, and 11 patches. So only when you own an Oracle account, you'll be able to download these patches to your environment. In this case, how are you going to push these patches to all the machines which are available in your environment? So we have an easy way to do this in Desktop Central. So you can just come to the supported view. So using this, you'll be able to upload the patches manually. So those patches will be available over here. As you can see, it's Java runtime patch, which is available. Just choose this and you can upload this patch to the store. And post that, these patches will be available as missing, and you can simply deploy these patches. You can push these patches to all your machines. In our organization, we want to follow Patch Tuesday for patching cycle. How can we set up the patches to be deployed 2 Saturdays after Patch Tuesday? As we have seen in the deployment policy, we have made this process much easier. So here, you can just come up with this part. Here you can choose based on Patch Tuesday, and I can choose second week after Patch Tuesday, and I can choose only Saturday over here. So based on this selection, the patches will be deployed only on the specified dates. It's really hard to manually deploy feature pack to all the client machine. How to automate the feature pack deployment? As we've seen earlier under the automate patch deployment task, you can just come up over here and you can simply create a task and you can choose the feature pack option over here. So once it's chosen, based on this, the feature packs will be deployed automatically to your client environment. Is that a way for Desktop Central to download all necessary patches, then restart only once for end user? This is the actual question we have received from a user. So it is not download, by the way, it's deploy. So is that a way for Desktop Central to deploy all necessary patches, then restart only once for end user? So this is what we can exactly do when it comes to the deployment policy. As you can see here, I can put up a reboot window. So post the reboot, post the deployment, I can choose a time. So on the same day or a different day, and everything is done. Post that, the reboot will happen on those machines. When I exclude or decline a patch, is this removed from the patch management dashboard page? Yes. So once you permanently decline a patch, those patches will not be shown as missing. So there are two solutions for it. One is a selective exclusion, another one is a permanent exclusion. So selective exclusion is nothing but while creating a task, I can very well go ahead and choose only specific application here where the remaining application will not get patched. The other solution here is I can just go to the decline patch option and I can create a task. I can choose the custom group to which I would like to decline the patches. I can either choose a family or a KB number or a patch ID or an application. Through this, I can entirely decline a patch and it will not be shown as missing. Our business applications misbehave occasionally, and I suspect that recent patch deployment could be the cause. How can I roll back a patch? That's a great question from a customer. Yes, it's a very simple process. We can just come up to the patch management part here, and you go to the deployment. Here under patches, install patches view. You can just choose this patch and simply uninstall this patch, which is possible. So to avoid all these scenarios, I would always recommend you with the test and approve and delay deployment. So before deploying any patch to your production environment, please test the patches and then push it to the production environment. While deploying the patches, I came across below errors on multiple clients. How to get this fixed? Office update error, unknown error code, and fatal error during installation. These days, for these errors, we have updated a clear knowledge base, which is available very next to the error message. If you just follow the steps which are available, you'll be able to fix this problem. If you're not able to find a resolution, we would recommend you to reach the support and we can very well help you accordingly. How do I take patch status report for a specific group of machine before and after Patch Tuesday? Here comes the schedule report option. So you can just go to reports, click on add schedule reports, and you can come to the patch report. And based on my objective, I want to know before and after Patch Tuesday. So I can add multiple columns to it. The more simple way, I can just go ahead and choose a release date option, which is I can choose the Patch Tuesday or today. If it's going to be Patch Tuesday today, I can simply go ahead and choose it and I can apply it. I can even go with the install patches and I can get a deployed date report over here. which I can choose, which is on today again. So before and after deployment, how many patches were there? I'll be able to get a clear report with this part. Questions. How soon are the patches available to me after being released by Microsoft? A security update will be available within 6 hours of release time, and a non-security update will be available within 24 hours of release time. Can we ever reach a green state in patch management? Great question again. So when it comes to this part, I would recommend you, if you have chosen all the updates to deploy, as we have seen earlier, the full patch approach by Microsoft, definitely your environment will be green and it won't be red like this. Still, I don't want to deploy all the patches, but I want to make sure my environment is healthy. We do have a policy here called system health policy. So based on the criteria I choose here, my environment will be shown as healthy or critical. So I can even choose only approved patches should come under the healthy part, or I can even exclude the third-party patches. If you decline a patch, it will not be shown as missing, and it won't be shown under the system health policy. So you don't need to worry about it. I could see a difference in patches discovered by DC against WSUS as well as Windows Update. Why? So in this case, I would tell you that previously we were not supporting BIOS as well as driver updates, but we have started supporting BIOS and driver update these days. So the difference should be very low. But when it comes to WSUS, they even show the superseded patches, whereas in Desktop Central, we show only the latest required patches for an environment. How failed patches are handled in test and approve. Let's go with an example over here. Imagine I'm trying to deploy 30 patches to my test environment. And out of 30 patches, like around 3 machines required those patches. I've chosen 3 machines in a group, and I'm trying to deploy 30 patches to that group. Out of this 30 patches, 25 patches have been successfully deployed on 3 machines, whereas in one single machine, 5 patches have got failed. It doesn't mean the patch is actually a problem, whereas that specific machine has some issues where it's not allowing that patch to get deployed. So in this case, if you have chosen an automatic approval, those patches will still get approved. Only when a patch is not being deployed to any of these machines and if it's getting failed, in that situation, we will not approve that patch manually or automatically. Is there a way to disable automated updates of third-party applications like Adobe, Java, etc.? Yes. We do have an option over here so where you can easily create a disable automated update configuration. Through this, you'll be able to disable the automated updates for Java, Adobe, Internet Explorer, Chrome in your endpoints. How can I see what are the patches released in this Patch Tuesday cycle and see all the missing system? It's a very simple process. I can just go to the missing patches view and I can create filters based on my requirement. So I can just go ahead and choose the release date part here, and I can choose when, between which day I want this to happen. If it's going to be on a specific day, like which was this week, I can choose those days over here. So based on this, I'll be able to get a detailed report, and I can even save this filter for future purpose. And I can also get this as a detailed report. So at the right-hand side, you find an option where you can just export this report. Some patches have the description of reboot may require. Why is this? I've got a detailed explanation for this. So the security update updates a DLL that is loaded in one or more processes that are required by Windows. This security update cannot be completed while the DLL is loaded in the client machine. So only after restarting the machine, during the startup, these patches will get applied. Or it could be a reason where The security update make changes to the registry. These changes requires that you restart your computer. Or the security update makes changes to the registry entries that are read only when you restart your computer. Or the other important scenario would be like the security update updates a device driver that is currently being used and that is required by Windows. So these updates cannot be completed while the device driver is being used. So only when you restart the machine during the system startup, these updates will get implemented. So in this situation, we normally adapt the tag from Microsoft. If Microsoft is going to tag a patch as may require reboot, most of the situation, it actually requires a reboot. And please do reboot those machines. So here comes the end of the patch management webinar. I would like to thank everyone for joining the webinar in your busy schedule. And I'm sure that my chat technicians have been like flooded with questions. And thank you so much for making the session much more interactive. You can very well rate us on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. You can also spread a word about this webinar as well as about Desktop Central UEM on the below platform. And the next training schedule will be for software deployment, which is going to be on October 30th, and you can also register for it. If you need a personalized Desktop Central UEM demo, you can very well inform our chat expert and they can help you accordingly. Thank you so much again. You have a great day.